It's been a while. Hello, my Dreads of the Dragon coasters. Here's a little campaign update for you, letting you know how a few changes are going to be going forward with the Dreads of the Dragon Coast campaign. You know, those of you who watch regularly, probably not in the future, that we have chosen to delay Varstrix's lair exploration due to some unfortunate real-life events. It's been a while, and seeing how things are, we're going to just begin moving forward. We've not been idle in the meantime, however, and have been working on something special, something we always knew would be coming. When I conceived of this campaign many years ago at this point, I always knew we would get to a point where we would need mechanics for the servants of the dragons. Dragons don't always do things themselves. They send their minions to raid, or pillage, or they send a cult to infiltrate small towns, which then, kickstarts the hero's adventure. This campaign's about being dragons, which includes doing the things that dragons do, which includes, of course, sending your minions to antagonize people that would have no chance against you personally. As such, I wanted robust rules that would be fast, to the point where we wouldn't have to spend hours and hours to get an action done. The game is still about the dragons, after all. I would also want a game that was rules that allowed us to have some complexity without turning the game into a mess of extra rules everywhere. We don't need to play a strategy game. I love them, but some people don't. So let me tell you a little bit about what I have decided to do. There's a game, once upon a time, we played Sith RP, or the Song of Ice and Fire role-playing game, and when we played it, I was not very satisfied with the rules of that game. I spent some of that time finding other systems that had similar rules that could be more elegant, more useful perhaps, and one of the games I found was Reign, a game system by Greg Stolze. The idea of Reign is to let players be a group of mercenaries in a fantasy world, sharing something the game calls a company, a faction, a group of mercenaries controlled by the player characters. Well, as a scientist, I couldn't help but sort of take a Frankenstein approach, and I have butchered Reign, carved out a big chunk of it, and neatly stitched it to the back of 4th edition D&D. Mostly I've tried to keep the game separate, but we're going to be playing sort of both. Going forward, we won't just be doing the 4th edition D&D rules using our player characters to fight big things. We'll be doing that, but we'll also playing a little bit of Reign. Not using player characters, of course, just the company rules. It really takes me closer to my dream of one day playing 2 role-playing games in a day, thus playing more than I would be able to in any number of hours in the same day. Reign is a system that uses the one roll engine. It tries to simulate complex actions using a simple roll. Let me explain to you what that means, so that when you see the dragons rolling a bunch of d10s and then saying "ah" or "yes" when they get doubles, you won't be so confused. The one-roll engine functions by having the players roll a pool of d10s and looking for successes. In this game, successes are defined by 2 d10s that have the same number, meaning a pair or a match, or if you're mathematical, a set. The players will have pools of dice built by their company. A company consists of 5 different attributes. There's might, there's treasure, there's influence, there's territory, and there's sovereignty. These qualities build up the pool, usually in pairs of 2. A quality ranges from 0 to 6. As such, players will usually roll from, well, probably not often less than 3 dice, and probably rarely above 10. In contested rolls, the better numbers win, meaning the set or match that is higher numerically than the lesser one. If you have more than 3 dice matching, or more than 2 I should say, if you have 3 or more, begin to talk about the width of the roll. More dice matching with the same number means that you can succeed with more skill, stealth, or ability. Let me tell you what each of these, in short anyway, what each of these qualities mean. Might, as might be predictable, is the military power of a company, both in soldiers, numerically, equipment, the ability to defeat them, their training. Anything that has to do with the army is surmised into the might score. Treasure is the ability of a company to quickly get money or to use money. If you have a big stockpile of wealth, then you will have a high treasure score. If you have a lot of assets that can easily be sold off in no time, you have a good treasure score. If you have a lot of friends who are very wealthy and will give you loans on very short notice, then you can also have a big treasure score. Influence reflects how much a company knows about their surroundings and how much they can control what happens in their surroundings. You use influence to both learn of what the prince wants and convince him that that's actually not what he wants. Territory is the territory controlled by the company, both in size, but also, and I think more importantly, in how developed the area is. A place with a small village would have a territory score of 1. There's very little to draw on, but a massive city, even if it's not large in sort of scale or size, could still have a very high might score, or territory score, sorry, if there's a lot of territory to draw upon. Sovereignty, the last one, and maybe the most important one, is how loyal the followers of the company is. At 0 sovereignty, a company ceases to exist and is dead. That might be difficult, you think. How do you lose attributes? How do you gain attributes? You gain them simply by doing things against people who have more than you. If you want territory, you need to capture significant territory from someone who has more territory than you do. That seems perhaps difficult, and it is, and should be, because the qualities only rank up to a maximum of 6, simulating the greatest empires the world would be capable of. Hence, an increase of 1 is a pretty significant step. To start off, each dragon has been given, a company, with 1 in each quality and 3 in sovereignty. It means that they could do anything. They have 0 in nothing, yet they're not really good at anything. Then, I gave them 4 advancement points to allocate as they thought would make sense, because the dragons are not terrible at everything they attempt, or certainly their servants are not. Once, perhaps, that would have made fitting. Nowadays, not so much. Hence, if you want to follow along at home, they could put those 4 points wherever they wanted. And they did. And it mostly makes sense. Beyond that, they were given another thing, because companies don't just exist as a bundle of these 5 qualities. They also have something called assets. Consider assets as traits, or perhaps feats, if you will. Each company is given 1 asset. An asset usually gives a point or a dice bonus to a very narrow number of actions, a very specific use, if you will. Yet, it makes the companies able to do that thing very well. The companies will, in our campaign, work on a yearly timescale, replenishing their resources throughout the winter season. This is important because it limits how often a company can act. Whenever a company takes an action, it temporarily has to reduce 1 quality that was used in that action by 1. These only replenish in winter, and they stack. So if you keep doing attacks, suddenly your military will look ragged and not be able to do much of anything until they have some time to recover. If a company cannot reduce equality temporarily anymore, say they have reduced their 3 might all the way to 0, and they still want to for some reason continue rolling with that 0 dice pool, they can. They just have to now make it a permanent decrease to their stat. If sovereignty ever reaches 0, even temporarily, a company ceases to exist. Essentially, if people no longer take your orders and simply leave and desert, there isn't a company, no matter what other assets they might have. So let's take a look around this beautiful map. As you can see, tokens have been added, showing the presence of powerful or important companies. If we look at the red and smugglers here, we can see their attributes shown, because I own them, and I'm the DM. We have an attribute of Might 1. The red and smugglers don't have a large force of soldiers. They are actually militarily not very strong. Their strength lies in their boats and their ability to run away whenever attacked. They have a treasure of 2. They have a bit of money. They can sell certain things they own. They can make it work, but they're not wealthy in any case. They have an influence of 2. They don't really know that much what goes on outside the River Redden, nor do they care too much about influencing it. They have a territory of 2 due to some recent acquisitions. The Worm's Hamlet has been subjugated by the Red Smugglers, so has the Eel Fort, and of course they control their little town over here of Redwater. They have a sovereignty of 3, which is the standard. Their members are fairly loyal, not willing to kill themselves for their masters perhaps, but happy to do what it takes and generally follow orders, even if at times there's a bit of grumbling. So, let's imagine that the Red Smugglers wanted to attack someone. Say, the Were-Rat Coven. In this case, they would add their might and treasure score, because that gives the pool for attacking. Essentially, the power you have and the money you have to quickly make that power better. I will roll a dice pool of 3. Well, look at that. The Red Smugglers got a 9, 8, and 4. As such, they did not really do it. They did not get a match, and they failed. Their attack moves in, but crumbles as they try to surmount any sort of significant attack or push. There are more complex systems in this game, certainly, particularly defending. But rather than get into those, I think I have spoken enough, and perhaps it'll be more fun for you anyway to just randomly guess at the rules, or I'm sure you can look them up online if you're really interested. All in all, I'll just say that I'm excited to get back into this game. And I'm excited to get to this part of it. And I know that I'm not alone in that. I hope you'll enjoy watching it. Then again, I figure you probably will, if you have so far. That's it for the little update. Yeah. I'll see you in the next video.